this evening.
Go ahead.
It's 7 o'clock. It's a nice warm spring evening here that we've all been waiting for months and months. So I want to start on time. And again, I appreciate your interest. I appreciate you coming. My name is Greg Lander. I'm the Executive Director of the Municipal Review Committee, which is an organization made up of 187 main communities. The MRC was formed back in 1991 to look after the public interest in the waste energy project that the communities have been a part of since 1988. That was a 30-year arrangement that comes to a conclusion in the year 2018. So the project that we're here to discuss again tonight would be a replacement facility that would start up on April 1st, 2018. I did want to take a moment to first mention that the management authority in the MRC rests with a 9-member board of directors that are elected by the member communities to serve the communities at large. We have 2 board members here this evening with me. Sophie Wilson, Town Manager of Warren. She serves as the MRC Treasurer. And Karen Cassell, MRC Board Member. She is the Finance Director of the City of Brewer. And with that, I'll mention briefly, I first introduced Dennis St. Peter. He's with Civil Engineering Services. He's the Principal Engineer on the project. Dennis is here this evening to go through a few elements with us. First, a general description of the project, the site layout, and so forth, with a focus on potential natural resource impacts, environmental impacts. Next, Dennis will talk about the licensing that's required for a facility of this nature to be built. And next, he'll also discuss future opportunities for public participation as the licensing process commences. So with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Okay, great. I think we've got our technical difficulties worked out just in time, Chip?
Yeah.
So this is a project, it's a solid waste project, it's a processing facility. It does need several licenses, so several bureaus within the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. Therefore, it triggers a required public informational meeting. So tonight is that meeting. We had another one last week, and you'll see that we're going to be continuing our public involvement through the permitting process. So there's when you first came in, there's a sign-up sheet, so if everybody could take the time to just sign in before you leave, if you haven't already. There's also 2 handouts. One handout has a brief summary of the project and the licenses that we'll go through tonight. And then the second handout is the Department of Environmental Protection's information sheet on public participation in the licensing process. So everybody take a copy before you leave. As I said, this is a proposed solid waste processing facility. It's a co-applicant of the Municipal Review Committee and Fiberite LLC. There is a, jump ahead for a second, Chip, one more ahead. So as part of this project, there's a new access road off Colebrook. So I'll back up a second and kind of put it in context where we're talking about. This is the I-95. This is the Colebrook Road. The large dice harvest facility is on this side of the highway. H.O. Bouchard is on this side of the highway. And then this proposed new road uses an existing gravel road across some fields here into this area that has been zoned industrial by the town of Hampden. So the town has a comprehensive plan where they've mapped out land uses, and this, you can see the green, this green zone, that's industrial. The yellow is an interchange with the highway. The purple color is a rural zone, and there's a residential zone down here. And then there's also another industrial zone. This is an ammo park over here. So this road is about 4,400 linear feet in length. And again, it's going to be using the existing gravel road. There's a proposed facility. This is a building location that's 144,000 square feet. If you can back up 2 slides, Chip. That new road is about a half mile from the interchange of the highway. The total wetland alteration that we're looking at for this project is somewhat less than 3 acres. So through development projects, we're required to avoid and minimize as much as we can. And you'll see on the site plan, we've done a good job of avoiding and minimizing those impacts. The total impervious area associated with this facility is 5.9 acres. As I mentioned before, the building footprint is 144,000 square feet. There's another associated administrative building that's attached, that's 9,800 square feet. And there's also the parking and maneuvering areas around the facility. Next slide. This is the long list of all the permits that are required for a facility like this. There's quite a few of them. And as I mentioned, this is why this meeting is required, because it's triggered more than one. The first permit on the list is the proposed road, and associated facilities with that road requires what's called a Chapter 500 stormwater permit. The second license on the list here is there is a Small Site Location of Development Act, or the SLODA, referred to as SLODA, for transferring of one property to another. So the property owner transferring a piece of the property to the MRC. The third permit is called the Natural Resource Protection Act, NRPA, and that has to do with protected natural resources, wetlands, vernal pools. And this project is somewhat unique. We're doing that NERPA permit for the road, and we're also doing that separately for the processing facility. The solid waste permits that are required are both under Chapter 409, which is processing, and then Chapter 418, which is beneficial use. As we'll talk about the processing, the end products are going to be beneficially used. There's also going to be a minor source air emissions license required for the processing facility. There's also a Army Corps of Engineer permit under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, and it's another level of permitting that we need to do for wetland impact. So it's really a federal and state duplicate there. And then the last one on the list is the town of Hampden will have a site plan review process for the entire project. So both the site plan for the facility as well as the road will go through town approval process. So as you can see, there's several permits. The timing of these, the solid waste permits take the longest time for approval. The DEP takes, and when I say DEP, that's the Department of Environmental Protection. They have a year's worth of review process on that type of permit. So that's coming in to the DEP mid-month, this month, mid-May. All the other permits are going to follow about a month behind. We have, in the state of Maine, we have vernal pool surveys that must be done in the spring. That's for the certain frogs and salamander eggs that we have the inventory of the project before a project like this. So that's happening right now, and we'll be submitting probably mid-June on everything else. This is the overall aerial photo of the area. As I mentioned, this area was targeted because the town is interested in a project like this. It's consistent with their comprehensive plan, and it is zoned industrial, which is what we need for this type of project. This dark boundary is a proposed estimate of the property boundary for the facility. MRC is acquiring a lot more property than it needs. We'll zoom into the site plan in a little bit, but the property that's utilized is up in this corner. I think that's all on that slide. Here's another overall site plan that shows the actual alignment of the road. It shows the wetlands in this dot matrix figure. So you can see that there's a standing water out there, right here, but as you approach the facility, it's more of a forested wetland. And it may be hard to see from your seats, but this area up in here is all upland, and we fit the facility in there the best that we can to avoid and minimize wetlands. Okay. And here's zooming in to the actual site itself, where here's that new road extension. And then we've got the driveway in with a scale and scale house. The trucks will, so this is the front facing that new road. The trucks will drop off the waste inside the building, and there'll be a loading out on this side of the facility, that exit. This will be the employee parking area and administrative section of the building. And then this figure shows the different components inside the building. So a lot of times on these types of meetings, we don't get a lot of into the inside of buildings, because that's not necessarily part of the permitting process. But this is a processing facility that needs a solid waste license, and I'm going to have a hard time reading these, so I'm going to come over here. So the green section is referred to the hydrolysis section. This light blue-green color is the washing area. The yellow is the material separating part of the facility. So when the waste comes in, this is all the mechanical separation part of the facility, where all the waste is processed and divided up into components to further process. There'll be a lot of recyclables that don't make it through the local recycling process and will be captured on the upfront part of this facility. The pink area is the pulping process, and the darker blue is the anaerobic digestion tanks. Okay. The last time we had a public informational meeting, there was some residential concerns about prevailing wind direction. So I came this time with showing what our research shows on prevailing wind direction in this area. So when you look at the information from, I think our source was Bangor International Airport, and any other source there? No, okay, Bangor International Airport. There's actually two prevailing wind directions: a summertime prevailing wind direction and a winter time. So this bluish purple arrow is in a northwest, or comes from the northwest to the southeast direction, and that would be the fall-winter prevailing wind. And the yellow arrow is the spring-summertime prevailing wind direction, which comes out of the direct due south to north direction. So this, again, this red box is the facility itself, where all the waste is processed, and I think it may help some concerns based on the prevailing wind direction. Next slide. All right, Kyle, do you want to talk?
Sure.
Air emissions real quick?
Just to touch briefly on the air emissions and odor control for this project. The source will be licensed as a minor source. That's defined by DEP and their licensing rules. And all sources are subject to DEP and EPA's best available control technologies, as well as new source performance standards. There's a ton of those, and we're still kind of sorting out which ones we're going to fall into. Then the odor control, which I know is a big one. In this project, all all transfer operations are going to happen indoors, and the building is maintained under negative pressure. We're going to have a fan set up that draws a considerable amount of air into the facility. That air is then treated. It goes through a scrubber, which it's an odor scrubber designed to take out the organic components of the gas to reduce any odor coming from the facility. Now, the DEP will not license the facility under Chapter 400 or 409 if there is potential to be generating odors, particularly nuisance odors. And that's pretty brief, but
Yeah. This slide shows all of the communities that are part of the MRC that have brought waste to the PERT facility across the river. And those are the target communities for this project. As you can see, it ranges down to the coast, up to even into Aroostook County. So there's 187 communities that bring waste to PERT currently. Next slide. So this gets into the more real technical details of the processing facility inside the building. And depending on the questions that you may have on the details of the processing, we'd like to set up a separate, more detailed conversation about opportunity for people to ask questions about the processing facility. So it's really a summary level that I'm giving now, and what we'd like to do is have a meeting, offer another meeting, May 19th at 7 o'clock, and we'll make sure that we are notifying those that are interested. And I thought of maybe those that are interested in a more very detailed technical conversation about the processing. Maybe we can use our sign-in sheet to put to identify whether or not you'd like to be a separate invite to that meeting. But it will be here at the 19th at 7 o'clock. And if you have detailed questions that you'd like to submit ahead of time, we'd like to get those by the 13th of May. And we'd also, I think another idea of helping get input from the communities that are maybe be of concern. So we'd like to maintain frequently asked questions list and make that public, that we can keep on adding questions and concerns that we get, and hopefully publish some answers, as well as a way to get input to our project. And I think the MRC and Fiber Right are very open to constructive input to their project. So back up a second and just go over the process flow diagram here. There is this top here in this yellow or mustard color that is a mechanical separation of waste process. And then, these are the end products over here that are recyclable. There's going to be aluminum, residuals, ferrous and other metals, plastics, film plastic, and others that will be recycled. And then there's going to be, for the stuff that proceeds to this second, I guess, pink color, there's a pulping process that processes the waste. And then there's the washing process, and then the hydrolysis process. So it's a very technical process. And that's why we thought a separate discussion to get all the technical details would be more into. This process has been submitted to the University of Maine Chemical Engineering Program. The professors at the university have done a peer review and have concluded that all of these technologies exist, and they're all proven technologies. So that is one of the comforts that the MRC has, that we're not proposing something totally new here. It's all proven technology. Next slide. Before we get into that, just a summary of some other potential environmental impact that we're reviewing as part of the permitting process. There's a pretty detailed evaluation of traffic movement that we're doing. That will be part of the May 15th submittal. And that has to look at all the haul routes, make sure that there's no congestion problems, everything's safe, all the roads are designed to handle the traffic. And at this point, we're very confident that everything meets the standards. We have to make sure that there's no unreasonable adverse effect on scenic character, which again is part of the it's zoned industrial. So I think we've met the standard there. Kyle just covered the air quality and odor. There's also a very detailed evaluation of surface water quality, both on a stormwater basis. We have to do modeling to evaluate stormwater, and then also on the wastewater. Any wastewater that's generated is going to be connected to the utilities, sewer lines. We also have to make sure that there's no unreasonable erosion from the project, and we're going to be paving the roads, be putting in all the best management practices that we need to minimize erosion. No impact on groundwater quality, and this project has no impact there. Adequate provisions for utilities, and I didn't, you want to jump back to the one that shows Animal Park, yeah. So, as part of the project, there's no water and sewer on Colebrook right now. So we evaluated whether or not to connect utilities down here or across over to here. The town's preference, as well as it just made more economical sense to connect it through here. So we're also extending utilities out that way. And then there's solid waste management hierarchy. For those that paid attention in Maine, there's been a lot of discussion about following the hierarchy. There's a state statute that provides all of the priority on waste management in the state of Maine. So you're supposed to evaluate the methods of waste handling, and you're supposed to try to follow this hierarchy to the best you can. So reduction has the highest priority, reuse, recycling, composting, processing, and then finally land disposal at the end, the last resort. So we'll do a detailed evaluation of the compliance with the hierarchy, but I'm going to summarize a bit here. There's a lot of local recycling being done, a lot of reuse, reduction of waste locally. This type of project is not going to deter those local systems from succeeding. It's really just going to be another take at reducing and reusing waste. I talked about the front end of the mechanical separation and getting all the recyclables out the best we can. And then we're going to be making products. Can you go back to that process flow? So again, there'll be some glass and aggregate that's captured that won't have to necessarily go to the landfill. There's going to be a gas component that's going to be put back into a gas pipeline. And then there's also biomass that can be used as fuel. And then there's also industrial sugars that can be marketed. So the overall success rate of this project is actually pretty incredible. If you've looked at different systems across the state, it's probably achieving the highest diversion rate from landfills out of any project that I know of, and it's going to achieve about 80% diversion. So we feel like the standards on the solid waste hierarchy are going to be achieved upfront more than other projects in the state. The last little bit is this handout. It's double-sided, and it's a required component of this meeting that we just inform the public that this fact sheet exists. And there's all kinds of opportunities to provide input on the permitting process. This public informational meeting is mentioned on the first page as 2A. We're going to be filing the applications in the timelines that I mentioned. If you're an interested person, there's many components. So I guess it starts on the first page at the bottom and then goes on to the second page. But there's several. You can submit comments directly to the DEP. I know that the MRC and Fiber Right are very interested in getting your comments. So we want to maintain a set of frequently asked questions, share feedback, share comments, suggestions. There is a provision in here to ask for a hearing to the DEP. There isn't an automatic hearing for a project like this, but you can request that. I had mentioned you can submit comments directly to the department, and then there'll be a draft order that will be available to the public. So, I think that concludes the. So, is there anything, Greg, that you wanted to add before questions?
No, I think it's time to jump into Q&A.
Yep.
So that 20% of this is going to a landfill?
Yes.
Where is the landfill?
Excuse me?
What landfill will we work with?
You want to take that?
I'll take that one. Probably aren't going to be satisfied with my answer. But all the residue will be hauled from the site and needs to be disposed in a secure licensed landfill that has capacity available to me. And the issue is we're just down to a handful of choices. handful that come to mind is ARL facility in Old Town. There's a municipal facility over in Augusta. It's owned by the city of Augusta. And there's a commercial secure landfill located in Northport. It's just outside of Skowhegan. So when I say a handful of choices, they're literally just a handful of choices. The terms, and the MRC, by the way, this responsibility falls on us. We have a development agreement that we entered into with Five Acres, so it divides out the elements of this arrangement, who's responsible for what. So we're responsible, the public, to make the rest of the disposal arrangement. And I'm, one of the key people in that negotiation. And the negotiation's currently ongoing. It's not complete. I expect, fingers crossed, that we will be in a position to make an announcement within a month or so over a long-term arrangement for secure disposal of the residue that will be generated as a result of the project. Given where we're at in the negotiation, I'm just not at a point where I can disclose what facility that will ultimately be, but we're pretty close.
One more question. A nuisance odor, who determines it's a nuisance? If it bothers people, is it a nuisance, or is there a certain level of regulates?
Yeah, with this, there's a standard, and you ought to look to the technical codes.
Yep.
Verse 9 in that.
Okay, so the solid waste rules lay out provisions for nuisance odors. So there's also a fairly new system where they use a system to help measure whether or not it is a nuisance odor. But the department, the DEP, would come in, if the facility does not agree with any public concerns, the facility is required to report any complaints. If the complaints don't get resolved, the DEP comes in and helps resolve, settling that nuisance odor. Does that answer the question? Okay. And just I thought one last thing, just to make sure that it was clear. There's no new landfill proposed as this project. Just to make sure if that was part of your question. Or there is no landfill component to this project. We're going to be using existing landfills. Any other questions?
The building design, so the trucks go in on the top, around the yellow, to the right of the yellow.
Yeah.
And then they turn around in the building, or?
No, they go into the tipping floor here. The different types of trucks will unload and then pull back out. So this area is the unloading area inside the building.
You wonder drive out versus back out?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be drive out.
So they're gonna back
in.
out and drive out. They pull into the building.
Back into the building and
Back in.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how, it's supposed to be totally self-contained, right? So how do you keep it self-contained when you have vehicles going in and out?
What they're going to have set up is under normal conditions, when the doors are closed, building sealed, they have a single fan running, a single exhaust fan. The doors are interlocked to a second fan, so as soon as the door is open, another fan kicks on, which increases the amount of passive air moving through. And anything that's inside the building is going to stay inside the building. And in fact, probably some of the things around the outside, as far as air goes, will be open.
So it creates a vacuum so that the airflow across an open door is only in.
So the trucks, when they go in, they're all the way in, they're not halfway in and halfway out. Correct?
Yeah.
Something closes behind them.
Hey, Dennis, first, thank you both for coming and allowing us to ask questions. So we all have a lot of questions. I have a question, I'll just ask one. So you mentioned odor and such like that, but I didn't hear anything mentioned about decibel. So my question is, what is the decibel level currently at the park plant that's existing in Orrington, and what is the decibel level of this proposed facility?
Let me talk about the proposed facility and then I guess Greg can decide on the perk, because I don't know the answer to the perk question.
I decibel level that just plant personnel might not, I don't recollect it.
But the perk plant is literally spinning a turbine, right? Yes. It's generating electricity.
Yep.
Because I can hear that at 109 Kenneth Road at night, and I'm across the river. But this doesn't have a turbine. Perk does.
Right.
So, with that being said, any processing facility, you have noise that's associated with it.
Yep.
So, my question to you is, what is the decibel level of this facility?
The solid waste rules require, for this facility, require 70, less than 70 during the day and 60 at night. Now, all the equipment's gonna be in, it's gonna be different equipment than what's at Park. Based on where we're at right now with our noise study, we're having no problem meeting those required decibel levels. So, less than 70 daytime, less than 60 night.
And can you give a comparable, what's a comparable 70 decibel noise?
70 decibel would be a fairly loud conversation between two people close together. That's, the other thing you can take into account for this is the separation and the wooded area around this facility. As a rule, for every 100 feet of wooded area you have, you lose between 5 and 8 decibels of noise from that source.
Thank you.
We've got over 3,500 feet, 3,500 feet between there and the closest residential area. And it's all wooded. Any other questions?
Your last meeting, you mentioned how many trucks are going to be going through there a day. I didn't write it down. Could you,
Well, and I think we didn't mention the number of trucks, but someone in the audience did some quick math and tried to calculate it, but it wasn't a straightforward, you can't divide by this, because there's 3 different sizes of trucks. So we're in the 60 trucks per day delivering waste, and there'll be about 4 trucks per day removing residuals. Did I say that right?
They're loading residuals.
we're talking about 65 trucks a day.
And then the employee traffic, we're looking at peak, we're required to look at peak hour, and the peak is going to be the employees. So when changing shifts, I should say is kind of the good news, this is, all the jobs associated with it.
So is it a 24-hour operation?
I think he said it was.
Well, we're gonna, it operates 24/7, but the processing will be done on 2 shifts, so processing will be 2/3 of the time, and no processing during 3rd shift.
So no trucks coming in during 3rd shift, very soon.
All the trucks will start coming well before the 3rd shift started. I don't know that we've settled, the final way on hours of operation, but I think, if we roughly follow what has always worked around this area, I think we'll be looking at roughly 6 to 6, 5.5 days a week. Just maybe that'll move a slight bit, but that's the neighborhood that we're in right now.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah. So you mentioned that you're going to install a new water line that's going to service the facility.
Yes.
So my question is, with this new facility, do we have current capacity to service this facility with water? And will you need a pumping station to boost it? And if so, where would that be located?
Okay, I'll talk about the water quantity first, and there is sufficient water because this facility doesn't have a high need for water. There's a liquid in the waste that's captured. So we're just tapping in, I think somewhere over in this area where the second phase of the business park in Hampden, it's all going to be connected that way. And I just thought of this whole road, even though we're coming in on this end of the road with utilities, the MRC is servicing this entire road with water and sewer. So new development, if it ever comes, would have access to that. So, question about how to get the water from here. Is there a need for a pump station for water?
Just a good question. There's a tank currently in Hamel Park there. We've got to ask.
Another guy's the right guy to ask.
Yes.
But we don't see, there's nothing hard about getting water to this site.
So as a follow-up, you mentioned this, that you're going to bring in sewer and water, which would give access to potential commercial lots, which pay taxes, which is a good thing for all of us.
Yep.
So selfishly speaking, that's on ITS 82 snowmobile trail currently. So I'll ask again if MRC and Fiber can make sure that they make a provision that ITS trail doesn't get shut down for snowmobile
Yep.
industry.
Greg has already affirmed that that would be
Yeah,
the
we've
case.
discussed that with the authority.
Last question. In the future, could more communities sign on to this, and like 20 years down the road, you could double what's going in there?
Yes, we did talk a lot about the capacity of the facility, but there's a pledge that there's no out-of-state waste. So the MRC communities are not interested in bringing out-of-state waste. But areas, can you bring up the MRC map? Greg, you can jump in after I'm done here. But if it makes sense for communities to utilize this facility, that, from these areas, some of the areas that don't currently utilize them, I think the MRC and Fiber Red are open for business. There would be a capacity that would be available to them.
Well, right, and I mean, the goal of the MRC board since the outset, has been to simply design a replacement solution for the communities in this region. Is there a possibility, I suppose, years down the road, that a few others may sign on? I suppose that's a possibility, but that said, we have design parameters that have been set up around the development of this facility. There's a design that's not a limit, that is approximate to, just the needs of our existing region. So I would expect growth potential. Maybe there's a small, I'd expect it to be minimal, if any, over time.
Any other questions? Sophie?
Not a question, but more a follow-up, and that's just to remind folks that, transportation-wise, we'll be in a similar location. Price-wise,